Hey everybody, welcome to Solid Performance Solutions. I'm Chris McCabe with a laughing, smiling Leah McHugh this time, which is fantastic. That's not something we usually see. So we can tell you why she is so, maybe not happy, but so huge. We were looking at some appeals. It's certainly a tricky subject matter because it's serious stuff. When you're appealing for reinstatement, your account's shut down, your top selling ASIN's down. It's typically somebody asking for help because they've sent in, maybe we'll call it less than professional communication that wasn't taken seriously, either with a joke or haven't we seen references to like nursery rhymes?
Oh, a lot of crazy.
We've seen bizarre Shakespearean references.
And just kind of nonsensical, but with exclamation marks and please and all sorts of, like pleading for salvation, things like that.
We've seen, and these are marketed, I guess, as attention grabbers. Well,
and they are attention grabbers. They're just not going to get you the attention that you are looking for with Amazon.
Right. I mean, maybe sometimes they argue, well, once you get their attention, they'll delve into the facts that you give in the appeal and they'll reinstate you, or they'll pay more attention to what you sent them. We've read through these. Nowadays, they seem to be sprinkled throughout, not just the subject line or the first or second sentence. We've seen bizarre references. We're not going to offer samples or examples this time where there's just strange references to how can you be so cruel? How can you be so unfair? And sometimes begging, we understand where that comes from, but begging doesn't pay the bills. You have to hit them with factual info. If you're going to go out on a limb and grab their attention and then start complaining about how they've handled your appeals, which that's certainly fine if you do it right, or accusing them of things, which if they're making egregious errors in the suspension of your account or your ASIN, you can certainly complain about that, but it has to be done right. Screaming at them in all caps is the best example I can think of. You might be 100% justified with that raw emotion, but the primal scream with all caps is the best example of you're not doing yourself any favors. It's not going to get you anywhere. And in fact, I would argue, based on conversations I've had with Amazonians who read some of these things, but also just with other people in the community, you're just kind of ticking them off. I can't see how that helps your case.
Well, and I think maybe when people first started doing it, they did get some sort of traction with it because it was a little bit outside of the norm. And maybe it did kind of trick a few people into clicking open on that email. But now they've seen it so many times at this point that they're just like, oh, another one of these. There are ways of getting Amazon's attention without resorting to like clickbait type strategies. Like, you know what gets Amazon attention? Monetary figures. If you can say like, hey, this is losing millions of dollars, or we've lost $2 million in the last month because of an error on Amazon's part, that's going to get their attention.
Or just generally speaking, factual information.
Yes.
We've sent in 6 appeals over 6 weeks. Now, if that person doesn't care how many you've sent and how long you've been down, the numbers won't matter anyway. If they are truly interested in figuring out, I wonder why they had to appeal 6 times. I wonder why it takes us a week to get back every time with a response. If that person's on that side of the fence versus the other, then they'll be interested in knowing why it took 6 appeals, or they might read your first appeal and say, oh, this is silly. This should have been resolved in 1 appeal. I know it sounds like a fantasy, but that actually does happen. That's why escalations do work.
Particularly in my case, usually they're being denied reinstatement because the compliance team just has a fundamental misunderstanding of the laws in relation to that particular product. So that does get executives' attention when you're like, they are not reviewing this properly. Their job is not being done properly, and Amazon's SOPs are not being followed. That gets their attention.
And don't be such a pessimist that you assume from the get-go, no one's going to read this, no one cares. I'm going to vent just because it might get to the right person who's willing to read it and take the right action. Don't take somebody who could be persuaded to help you and dissuade them from helping you with insulting stuff. I mean, don't insult their intelligence. That's another big one I've seen. Just you're trying to make them feel stupid. You're trying to make their teammates feel stupid. Maybe some of their teammates aren't that intelligent. Maybe you're right. Do you think you're going to get your message across? Do you think you're going to encourage them to waste time on you or to help you by insulting them or insulting their intelligence? Or maybe you don't directly insult their intelligence, but you phrase it in such a way that it sounds like you're talking to like a baby or a little kid. And so you're trying to belittle them. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, at the end of the day, like you are trying to get their attention, but you're also trying to get them to go out of their way to help you. And I think that second part tends to get forgotten by a lot of people sending these in. If they open the email, great, but it doesn't really do anything unless they do actually help you.
Clickbait doesn't work really beyond getting someone to look at something.
Right.
So if you don't care what the ultimate outcome is, which I doubt is true, and you just want them to look at it, I can tell you right now, they do look at these things. They don't auto-delete them when they show up in their inbox. If it's an escalation email that was delegated down to them from a VP or a senior executive that they report to directly, they're not going to auto-delete it. They are going to open it anyway.
Right.
So you're not even accomplishing that goal. Beyond that, belittling them, taking them away from something, they're going to skip you and spend quality time on the next one because that person isn't trying to use humor in a strange way or isn't trying to be insulting or unprofessional. And quite honestly, you're giving them an excuse to ignore you if you're unprofessional.
Well, and the other side of that I see as well is it's quite polite, but it's more like whiny. Like, we don't understand what's going on. You need to help us. This is so unfair. Like, they're going to ignore that too, unless you're giving them actual reasons why they should care.
Well, it reflects badly on you in multiple ways.
Well, especially if you're doing that tactic, it shows that you have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Well, that's what I mean. So it's not just that you don't know how to communicate professionally, or maybe the way it's put together, they'll think you just gave it to your assistant to write. And like some entry-level person or an admin at your company wrote it, like, oh man, they don't even care. They're having some underling do it. Or they read between the lines and they're like, you don't even know why we suspended you, do you? Which means you either don't know Amazon well, you didn't take the time to study up on what happened on your account or your listing. You didn't even attempt to resolve it in any meaningful way. You're just upset and you're caving into this urge to be upset at us, but you're not researching it. You're not doing your homework. So it reflects badly on you, not just that you don't know how to communicate, because in your defense, if you're doing these things, let's be honest, a lot of people don't know how to communicate well at this point.
Right.
So we're not saying you're the only one who doesn't know how to write an email, but you're sending this to like a higher placed executive at the company.
Well, and I also hear from a lot of sellers who are like, yeah, I didn't think this was that great, but I thought I'd just give it a shot. You only get so many shots. And especially if you're sending it to higher level executives, you're burning potential bridges. So it's not just a matter of like, well, one email lost, no big deal. You're making it that much less likely that Amazon's going to take you seriously at any point. So it's not a matter of like, I didn't think it was that great, but I just wanted to send something.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
And secondly, in defense of some of the people who've shown this stuff to us, they claim that they initially disagreed with it. They hired somebody who gave them one of these wacky emails or templates. And they say, you know what? I pushed back. I said, I don't want to send this in. I think this sends the wrong message, or I don't think this is productive. It's counterproductive. And somebody on the other side was persuading them and arguing with them. No, we've done this before. It works to get their attention. This is what you need. You're stuck. And I can see how some of that would resonate if you are truly stuck. You might be grasping at straws.
Sure.
These are the wrong straws to grasp at. I mean, what's the point in being stuck in a ditch and hiring somebody who hands you a shovel and says, start digging deeper? Because maybe someday this will be resolved and maybe we will help you get there. First, we want you to dig yourself a deeper ditch and to climb in there. And then we're going to toss some dirt on top of you. And then we'll come back in a couple of weeks and talk to you about how you're still stuck. You're just making life worse for yourself. Well, you probably hired somebody because things were already sort of nightmarish and you didn't want to do it yourself, or you didn't think you charted a way forward for yourself. I mean, at that point, you're honestly better doing it yourself. And some of the people that are coming to us, these are Hail Mary passes. They've already appealed so many times.
Right.
They've already sent poorly executed appeals before they did the crazy, wacky humor. And some of these are just jokes, right? Like, what's the punchline, Amazon? Amazon, we want you to fill the punchline in because we can't think of what your punchline is. Like, this just makes you look like You're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
You don't even care what they expect from you. Like your assessment of their expectations is nothing. You only care about what you want to put on a page, right? So,
yeah. And it's similar to what we would see in Stulte, to be fair, where there's just a bunch of unrelated information to the issue jammed into an appeal, or graphs showing your sales figures that has absolutely nothing to do with the restriction at hand. That's just giving Amazon an excuse to ignore you and not take you seriously, especially if you're adding a bunch of erroneous information. It clearly shows them that you don't know what this is about and you haven't tried very hard to find out what it is about.
I mean, if they have any doubt that you don't know what's going on, why do you want to stand up and wave and say, yep, I can just kill all your doubts and confirm to you, we're just guessing. We don't know what's going on. The people we have working on our account aren't really sure. You're not telling us, you're giving us these copy and paste answers. I've got news for you. From now till the end of time, they'll be giving you those copy and paste answers. That doesn't mean you should respond with, this is all your fault. You don't tell me anything. I'm out of ideas. I need to scream and you need to take it. I mean, that's not going to get you anywhere. Is there any indication from your past messages or past interactions with Amazon that getting really ticked off has worked? I guess there's always that one random person on the forums or who like does a YouTube video. I screamed and yelled, just like there's always that person who says, I flew to Seattle and I went into one of the Amazon buildings.
Do people still say that?
With me.
Oh my God.
I mean, never do these things. Hopefully that's a completely gone concept, but we still have people saying like, I'm flying out there. I'm bringing my lawyer. I'm bringing my board. I'm bringing my investors. I mean, for security reasons alone, don't show up at an Amazon building in Seattle. As somebody who worked in one of those buildings, can I just tell you, it's a bad look just for security purposes. Do not do these things. Certainly don't do it in a threatening, menacing manner. These are extremely bad ideas. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but I am going to say it. But it's not even that. I think people used to like kind of love bomb about Jeff. Jeff's amazing. Jeff is a genius. We love Jeff. All of that seems to be gone from these appeals over the years. Those are less and less frequent.
I still occasionally see them.
I don't.
We love Amazon.
I mean, and especially in the 3 years since Jeff left as CEO, now I really don't see the Jeff love emails really more than, I would say maximum we see those once a month. Maybe once a quarter.
You probably see them more than I do, to be honest.
I don't see them because this has replaced that. This is my theory of why are we talking about it? Why is this a trend? It's not a new trend, but why is it worse now? Why are we talking about it? Because we're seeing it weekly.
Well, and we are riled up about this because we tend to see this with people who are then asking for our help. And it makes it so much more difficult for us to help after all of this damage has been done. It makes our job so much more difficult. And sometimes people are so far gone that we just don't offer them our services because the likelihood of success at that point is so low and we don't want to take even more of their money
and
for something that is likely hopeless.
Right. Let us emphasize, we know that you don't have to necessarily care about what makes our life more difficult. But
well, I mean, you should care if it's your account.
If it's your account, you've made it a steeper hill to climb because just to reemphasize or, you know, what I said before, you have to be taken seriously. If they're looking at these silly things in your account annotations and they can see that their peers before them haven't taken you seriously, why should they bother when they can get credit for having worked on your case without actually working on your case? You're giving them a good excuse to skip over you. Well, then that defeats the purpose of why you wrote this or sent this in the first place. So unless you just kind of don't care about spinning your wheels, which I'm pretty sure most of us have better things to do, reconsider it. I mean, I don't know if it's just take another deep breath or if somebody tries to sell you on this concept of we sent this wacky stuff in the past and it got their attention and we got somebody reinstated with this. Maybe ask them, okay, did you get them reinstated 6 weeks later when you sent them something more professional? Or was it?
Or how long ago did this scenario happen?
Drill into it, drill down into that, because I don't think we would see nearly as many of these cases if those worked. And if people got reinstated by saying, hey, Jeff, we saw you on jet skis with your girlfriend in the Mediterranean, and we think you're a genius, and we love that giant yacht you bought.
And ultimately, you know, you and Michael both worked there. Neither of you would have taken these seriously.
We did see these. Not this kind of thing. because this is clearly somebody who's trying to sell a client on the idea of we're going to get creative and we're going to show you that we're pulling out all the stops to do anything we can possibly think of. So I get from the like consultant side why it's an idea they want to sell, but we got more the like kind of black and white, either the anger, we hate you, Jeff, we hate Amazon, you treat us like garbage, this is terrible, why are you like this, we hate you, or we got the love. We didn't see a lot of this in between, like we're going to try to finesse it and we're going to try to spin them. They don't have time to be spun. They need the hard-boiled facts. They need a cogent argument that makes sense, that they won't get into trouble or feel stupid themselves by reinstating you based on what you sent. That's what they need. Think the way they think, right? We're always talking about this, whether it's at our own conference or the Frostware show or wherever we go and talk about this publicly. Get inside their head as much as you possibly can. If you never worked there, maybe you can't get to 100%. Maybe as a longtime seller or brand owner who's interested in the process, you can get to 75 or 80% in terms of how they think. But that's the way you want to appeal. Questions on this? I suppose within reason, if you've got humorous examples of wacky stuff that you've tried, maybe you think it worked, maybe it definitely didn't work, feel free to share those with us. Who knows? There's a future episode, I'm sure, where we'll be quoting from some examples that we get. Anyway, I'm sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you've enjoyed seeing Leah smile in this episode as opposed to her typical sour/dour expression. Talking about compliance nightmares.
That's true. I do work on very dry subjects.
Things that people are either fed up with or things keeping them up at night. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. We will catch you next time. Have a good one.